Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the budget decision session of the Executive Leader and the Executive Member for Finance and Performance. Both myself and Councillor Eyre are here, so no apologies to give, and just to welcome anybody watching or watching back, and likewise thank all the officers for joining us today. In case of any questions and comments from Nigel and myself. First item is declarations of interest. I'll just give Nigel a chance, but as far as I'm aware, there are no declarations to declare. Councillor Eyre is not indicating, so that will move us on to agenda item 2, which is the minutes of last year's budget decision session on the 15th of January 2020. Looks a correct record to me, Councillor Eyre.
Happy with that, Chair.
So happy to agree the minutes of last year's meeting. Item 3 is public participation, and we don't have any registered public participants to take part in this decision session. That then takes us straight through to agenda item 4, which is the financial strategy set out on pages 5 to 32 of the papers. And I'll ask Debbie to introduce this to us, please.
Thank you. So these budget proposals have been prepared in the context of an unprecedented financial challenge and level of uncertainty due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And that pandemic has seen increased demand for council services and support alongside reductions in income across all services. The spending review was announced in November 2020, but that was only for 1 year, so that hasn't given us any further certainty. And it didn't actually give us any additional funding other than one-off COVID-related emergency funding. So the key assumptions in the report are that we're proposing a council tax increase of 1.99% plus the adult social care precept of 3%, which will be ring-fenced to providing support to adult social care services. We've identified pressures of just over 12 million. And then that leaves a budget gap of just under 8 million that we need to identify budget savings for. So the underlying requirement from a financial perspective has been to try and maintain a stable financial position in the midst of all this uncertainty, alongside dealing with those challenges facing council services, in particular social care. And it's worth noting that social care is a national issue that will require a government to identify a sustainable funding solution in the longer term. The proposals also importantly include the creation of some additional COVID recovery funds, so that's 2.5 million in revenue and 1 million in capital. And that will be to deal with any further pressures that we anticipate during the early part of the new financial year, but also to accelerate recovery and support communities. And the budget also includes investment in those areas where we are experiencing pressures in social care. The capital investment continues again to accelerate recovery and maintain progress on those major regeneration schemes. The annexes to the report outline the detailed proposals for these portfolios in particular, and also include a summary of the consultation responses that had been received at the point of publication. Again, it's worth just pointing out that the consultation is still a live exercise and that ends on the 31st of January. So we will do another summary of the consultation responses once that has closed. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much for that introduction. And again, once again to thank the various officers that are here from the different areas of the portfolios in case of any questions or comments. But with that, I'll go straight to Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no questions really, just an opportunity to make a few comments. Obviously, I want to start by thanking officers for the amount of work they've put in, particularly over the Christmas period. I know got to know Debbie particularly well over the sort of period between Christmas and New Year, which is not something we were kind of expecting. But part of that is probably the second point I wanted to make about why we're sort of here at the moment with these decision sessions, which was our administration's commitment to transparency and making sure that we do get our budget proposals out in the public domain as soon as possible. So rather than making sure we wait entirely until the executive presentation, this gives people a further opportunity to look at our proposals and to provide comment. Appreciate the finance portfolio and your portfolio as well, Keith, don't seem to attract quite as much excitement and attention as some of the other ones, and we haven't got any public speakers here today, but I'm aware there have been public speakers who've been able to come and comment on some of the other budget proposals. We are facing significant in-year financial pressures as opposed to the COVID pandemic, and it's something we're dealing with, and this budget does set aside a contingency fund that allows us to prudently plan for the year ahead to deal with some of the existing pressures and some of the pressures that we think we will be facing going forward. The Chancellor did promise us all the money we needed in terms of dealing with the pandemic. That was an empty promise and hasn't been followed through, and we have been left with significant shortfall. Similarly, the Chancellor promised that he would increase our spending power by 4.5%, I think was the promise. The reality has been shown that has actually been a transfer of burden from government to local taxpayers. And I think I've mentioned quite a few times on Facebook Live, council tax in itself was sort of a sticking plaster solution to the problems of the poll tax, introduced many, many years ago and has never really been looked at and reviewed since then. It certainly is not the way we should be funding adult social care in this country, and we're long overdue the promised review into adult social care. And while ever that doesn't happen, that continues to put significant pressures on local authorities and ultimately on council taxpayers themselves. It's a regressive taxation. It's not the way we should be supporting our vulnerable adults and vulnerable children. With that, we are looking to do that. So we have taken the adult social care precept. So we will see a net increase in what we're investing in both adults and children's services of over £2.5 million. We've also looked, I want to flag about how we can support our priority areas and administration. So fully acknowledging, as was discussed on Facebook last night, the severe impact the pandemic is having on people's mental health. We're making sure there's support in there. We're making sure that there's support for businesses as they start to grow back from the pandemic. And we've also put additional support in there for people on low incomes, acknowledging that they'll be the ones that are hardest hit by any increases in council tax. Despite the fact it's the least exciting, and less people have come to talk about it, it's also one of the areas that's delivered probably the largest amount of savings. So almost half of the savings we're delivering as an authority are within this portfolio area. And I think without denigrating the work that's done in this portfolio, it does show our priority of trying to protect those who are most vulnerable and look to make efficiencies rather than cuts wherever possible. And I think my final comment is just to flag the issues around the capital programme. Almost £600 million in this budget in terms of our capital investment will be absolutely key to the way we build back as a city and build back better. And I think the papers here do outline some of those major schemes around York Central, around the Outer Ring Road, around Castle Gateway, that really put us in a strong position to enable our recovery. So I think with that, Chair, happy to move the recommendations.
Thank you very much for that. So we've got the, I don't think I need to add anything to what you've said, Councillor Eyre. So we've got the options in front of us, paragraph 51, option 1, which is taking forward the savings growth and capital proposals as set out in Annex 1, 2 and 4. And what I would say is that they then go to executive in February with the other proposals from decision sessions, giving a further opportunity to comment. There is, as Debbie said at the start, that ongoing public consultation until the end of the month, and encourage residents, businesses and groups to comment and continue to comment until the end of the month, and then ultimately through to Budget Council in February. So lots of other opportunities for people to get involved. But could I see all those in favour of accepting the option 1 recommendation, please? Thank you very much. So that is unanimous, both of us in favour of that. That then takes us on to, I think, item 5, urgent business. I'm not aware of any urgent business. So just to thank everybody for attending. And I think this is the final decision session on the budget, Debbie. So now through to that consultation and the February meeting of the executive. Thank you all. Bye-bye.